Okay, let's get started with CSS Grid. So pretty much what I did here was kind of the same things as we did with Flexbox. I just created a big parent div and dropped in a few boxes. Okay, super simple. And in here, I just have the boxes. So the big parent here with this huge black margin. Okay, let's actually change it to something a bit lighter like that. Okay, perfect. Because I want to show you something in just a bit. Okay, so we have that parent, and basically the element takes up the whole thing. So it's block, right? And because we didn't add anything to this, we just have a H1. So it takes up like this. Now we saw that if we go on the parent and we add a display flex, this kind of goes horizontally like this, right? All right, so we saw that. And we can also do a flex direction, and we can say column, and that's gonna change it to this. Okay, so we saw this, we know how flex works. What happens if we add display grid? Well, nothing. Wow, amazing. This is some crazy technology, I know. Well, don't worry, because it's we can do some more things here. So the first property that we're going to take a look at is something called grid template columns. And what this allows us to do is basically create different columns like this vertically. So if I do something like 10 rem and 10 rem, hit save, this basically creates two columns that are 10 rem. And we can visualize this if we press F12 and we go to the boxes here and press this grid icon, click, you're gonna see that we created this grid. How cool. And this is 10 rem, so this is one grid and this is another one. And as you can see, as soon as it doesn't have space anymore, it's gonna create another row for us down here. Now what if I want 3 columns? Well, I just add another one, 10 rem. Hit save, now we have 3. What if I want to make this bigger? I can just add 30 rem. Look at this, now we have 2 small columns and 1 big one. So it's that simple. You just create a grid template column and then you define basically the sizes that you want to have. Now here's a cool thing. What if I want these to be 10 rem each? So 10 rem, but I want this to take up the middle one, to take up all the available space that's left here. Well, we can kind of use a thing that we used in Flexbox, which was like flex 1 or flex grow, and you know that took up the whole space that there was left. Well, we can do that here as well. We can do something called 1FR, and 1FR basically takes up the remaining space that there is. So there we go. So the middle one is now 1FR. It takes up the whole space. And then we have 10 rem and 10 rem. We can do that again if I add another 1FR. Now we have 2 equal sizes here in the middle. So 1FR, 1FR, right? These are the same sizes. If I want box 2 to be twice as big as box 3, we can also do that. We can say 2FR, so 2 times bigger than this one, the box 3. Hit save, and now as you can see, this is 2 times bigger than this. So this kind of works similar. The 1FR or flex 1, flex 2 kind of works the same way. And this is actually recommended to use. So maybe we can imagine like we have a layout that we just want a bit of margin and we have 2 columns. So the way we can do that is we can just say something like I want 5 rem margin, I want 1FR, 1FR, and 5 rem. Hit save and take a look. That's what we have. We have 5 rem, 1FR, 1FR, and 5 rem. Now this goes outside, unfortunately, but that's completely fine. For now, let's create 3 equal boxes, 1FR, 1FR, and 1FR. There we go. So now when we resize this, as you can see, they're gonna be responsive, they're gonna get larger as soon as our screen gets bigger, and so on and so forth. Perfect. And as you can see, if we only define 3 here, but there's more content, so we have 2 more boxes in this grid, it's gonna jump down here, all right? But if I add 2 more 1FRs, then it's all gonna be in one line, even though this doesn't have any space, unfortunately, left here. And the reason that it doesn't have any more space is because we have a large padding here. But if I make this smaller, as you can see, it contains itself in there. Or we can actually remove this, but this looks a bit weird. So let's add 2 rem back at least. Okay, so that's super cool. What else can we do? Well, rather than repeating ourselves like this, if I want 5 columns, what I can also do is say repeat, and I can say 5 times, comma, 1fr. So as you can see, it's the same thing as writing 1fr 5 times. So this just makes your life a bit easier. So again, if I want to have a bit of margin left and right, I can also do like 5%, and I can do repeat 3 times or 2 times 1fr, and then 5%. Hit save, and as you can see now we have 5% there, 2 1FRs, and 5%. Now our content is going outside here, but that's fine. We're going to take a look on how we can fix this. But this generally works just fine. So let's change this to repeat 3 times 1FR for now. Okay, perfect. So this is what we have. We can also define a grid template rows like this. And this basically goes in this direction. So we can create multiple rows. So if I say something like, I want 20 rem, 20 rem, and 20 rem, hit save, you're going to see if we click this grid, now we're going to have 20 rem here, 20 rem here, and 20 rem here. So this goes horizontally. The column goes like this, from up to down, and the row goes left to right. Okay, super. So we can also define that. Lovely. What happens if we do 1 and hit save? Well, as you can see, it automatically jumps down here. So if you leave auto and hit save, this kind of is going to be smart enough to know what to do. It's going to take up the size of the element itself, and it's going to drop it into a new line. So if I increase this to something like 3, as you can see, it kind of grows and it kind of knows how to create the next row for you. If we specify it exactly, then it's going to be that specific size. So 10 rem, 10 rem, or we can do 5, 50, let's try 50 and 50. And as you can see, that's going to give us these 2 large ones here. Let's quickly take a look on how we can actually position these elements inside this grid that we made. So we just have a grid template column with 3 1FRs. So what we can do is go up to each individual box, and we can add a grid area, and we can name these the way we want. Box 1, for example. I'm going to give it the same name just so this is very clear. This is going to be box 2. This is going to be box 3. This is going to be box 4 and 5. Okay, lovely. So what we can do now, as you can see, some weird things happen, but we can create down here something called a grid template areas. And here we can add a pair of quotes. And what we can do is we can kind of visualize our column in here. So whatever we have up here, we can lay it here. So we have 3 1FRs. We have 3 columns. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. So now, depending on what I want to add to this, I can just look at the names I gave to the boxes. So if I want the box 2 to be here, I can just say box 2. Hit save, and as you can see, the box 2 goes there. Here, I want to maybe have box 1 on the second column, so the second one, I can say box 1. So you can visually, literally visually lay out your content, and you can even see it in your CSS, which is super cool. So here, maybe I want box 3. Okay, but how can we add to the second row here? How can we add the content? Well, we can delete the semicolon here, press enter, and just open up another pair of quotes. So maybe I want the box 4 to be here. Hit save, and let's actually add 2 dots here because I want to explain something. Okay, if you want to leave empty space, then you can just add a dot. So if I want to add the box 5 up here, I can just say box 5. Okay, so I really want to emphasize this. Try to take a look visually at this and at this. So if we take a look, we have basically 2 rows. The first pair of quotes is 1 row, and this is the second row. Okay, and then these are the columns. 1 column, 2 columns, and 3 columns. So box 3 and box 5 is the last column. So this looks exactly the same way as this. So I can easily tell by my CSS how my layout looks on the screen. Okay, now here's the cool thing. What if I want to move the box 1 down here and I want to leave an empty space here? Well, it's super easy. We can just remove box 1 here, add the dot here, and just add box 1 down here. Look at that, so simple. What if I want to make the box 2 longer, maybe to stretch all the way here? I can just remove the dot and add box 2 again. So we're repeating ourselves, okay? And when we hit save, now this stretches all the way here. What if I want to add another row? Well, I can just, again, delete the semicolon and add another pair of quotes. And I can just add a few dots here, 3 dots. And maybe I want to leave some space here. And I want the box 5 to stretch all the way down in this row. So I can say box 5, and box 5. And hit save. And now as you can see, box 5 stretches all the way here. Okay, so as you can see, it's not that hard. If I want to stretch box 3 down here, I can say box 3. And there we go, we created our layout. Now you can imagine when you create a real website, you can do something like this, grid template areas. And you're gonna have something like this. Header, 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 or nav, nav, nav. And then you might have a section. You might have margin here, section, section, or margin, section, margin, right? So you can kind of lay out your website. And then we can do a footer, footer, and footer. All right, this stretches again all the way. And here we have space and our section and some space. Okay, so this is how we can super easily lay out our content. Now there's another way we can do this, so we can get rid of the grid template areas if this is not something you prefer. And we can also get rid of the grid areas. We don't need to name anything. What we can do is we can explicitly also position these inside the children. So what we can do is we can use something called a grid column, like this. And we can basically say from where to where this box 1 should go. If I do 1 to 2, as you can see, nothing happens. If we take a look at the grid and click on the grid, the way we can position these with the grid column is we need to count from these lines. So if we count from the first line, 1 here, this is 2. So this is where our content is stretching. If I want the box 1 to go all the way here, we need to count 1, 2, 3. So let's change 1 to 3. There we go. It goes all the way there. If I want the box 1 to stretch all the way here, we count again from the purple line. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I put 1 to 4. And now it stretches all the way. So it's that simple. So take a look on how easy it is to lay out with this as well. Now let's get rid of these for now, like this, just leave it by default. And we can even do it vertically, so using grid row. So we can say grid row, and we just count from up to down this time. We say 1, 2, 3. So if I want box 3 to go all the way down here, I can do 1, so 1, 2, and 3. So all the way down here. Save. And as you can see, this kind of jumps this way because CSS Grid kind of tries to fill everything up and position everything on its own. But if we explicitly want our box 1 to be here, we need to give it a name, because sometimes it might do things that you might not want, and then you need to explicitly write out these grid rows and grid columns. So let's go on the box 1. I need to explicitly say that it should go from grid column to 1 to 2, like that. All right. And then so 1 to 2. And this one as well, from 2 to 3, 2 to 3. And this one should be grid column from 3 to 4. And as you can see, now it fixes itself. Because we specified that this should be here. And I believe we can even remove these. Yes, we can even remove these. So by default, as you can see, if we don't define the grid column, it automatically tries to kind of fill up the content and position it where it thinks it should go. But if we specifically define that, hey, make sure that this box tree stretches down like this, but it still remains on grid column 3 to 4. So again, 1, 2, 3, from 3 to 4, 3, 4, okay? And everything works just fine. We can also leave spaces if we want between these. I can say grid column gap, like this. All right, and here I can say 1 rem if I want. All right, I messed this one up. It's column gap and hit save. As you can see, that leaves 1 rem gap between the columns. We can do it with rows, grid row gap. That's gonna leave some space between the rows like that. Now this stretches all the way down, so it's not gonna leave any gap. But we can also do across the board. We can do column and row. We can just say grid gap. And I can say 1 rem. And that's gonna put gap in between the rows and columns as well. Okay, well, now let me show you some cool properties that kind of work like the same thing that we do on Flexbox. So we have the justify content and align items. Well, we can kind of do the same thing here with the display grid. So what we can do is say justify items, and we can say center, and that's basically going to center all of our content in these grids. Okay, so as you can see, it drops everything that we have in here in the center. Now here we don't have flex end and flex start, we just have end and start. Okay, and then we also have stretch like this. Okay, let me remove this, which again is kind of the default, so you're not going to see any changes if you add display stretch. But let's kind of center this here. Okay, lovely. Another thing that we have is called align items. So let's give that a shot. We can say align items, and this works again vertically. So I can say center, hit save, and as you can see, that kind of centers this item. Now, this kind of takes up the size of the content anyway, because we don't have a grid template row defined. But if we define one, grid template row, and I just do 20 rem and 20 rem, let's see if that's too large. Let me close this up. Grid template rows, like that. Now you're gonna see, by default, again, this is gonna stretch just like this. So this stretches again. If we add justify item center, it's gonna center it horizontally, and align item center is gonna do it vertically. And here, again, we have start and end. Start. My apologies, I did it on the grid gap. No, start, end. All right, that's gonna drop it down here. And we can do center again to center everything up nicely. Now moving on, if we wanna do it on specific items, so maybe I want the box 2, and we can kind of do the same thing like in Flexbox. We can call a property here, let's say on box 2, we can do justify self. So if I do a justify self, I can do start, and that individually is gonna move that to the start of it. End, that's gonna move that to the end, and we have center and stretch again. So as you can see, we have so much flexibility here to move everything that we want the way we want. And this time we can also do align self. And so we can do it vertically and horizontally as well. So this is super, super powerful. So maybe I want this box 5 to be up here in the corner. So let's go to box 5, and we can do a justify self to start and align self to start. And there we go. So take a look. This is super, super powerful. It might be a bit hard to imagine how we can mess around with this and create a layout. But I'm gonna show you a super simple example on how we can put something together.